I'm here with John Mauldin, author of the newsletter Thoughts from the Front Line, one of my favorite and most stimulating reads each and every week. John's also written a book called Endgame, which is really about the big problems with debt and debt overhang that we face. John, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here.
So let's start with Europe. Europe is stimulating the whole world's concerns at the moment, and you've written about the debt overhang, and some of the dysfunction of Europe. But how do you see it the stage we are here in March of 2012?
Europe is trying to figure out how to deal with too much debt, too much sovereign debt, too much of commitments in terms of government commitments, their unfunded liabilities. I mean, the unfunded liabilities of much of Europe are much worse than anything we see in the United States. It's going to cause a fundamental restructuring in Europe. It's not just Greece. The only reason that people cared about Greece was because the French and the German and other banks had too much of their debt. If the Greek debt had all been on Greek banks, they would have said, gee, really, we're too sorry. We're sorry for you. And they would have helped them a little bit. The austerity package that they've been asked that they've agreed to is larger than their GDP over the next, I mean, it would be as if the U.S. agreed to a $15 trillion, $18 trillion debt reduction over the next 10 years. Well, I mean, that would be a serious recession in the U.S.
Yes.
And yet that's what the Greeks have agreed to do after they've already been in recession for 5 years. Plus, now that they've agreed to do it, the Europeans have moved the goalposts. And when they agree to do that, they're going to move the goalpost again. You can just see it happening.
Are they just making an example of Greece?
No, that's not it. It's that the voters are already fed up. They have figured out how to deal with the crisis, and the voters, I'm talking about in Germany and France and so forth. I mean, the Greek voters are beginning to get fed up too. And so they're just pushing the point where the Greeks will basically say, we're going to leave. It would be very unseemly, and it would set a terrible precedent if the Europeans went to Greece and said, we really think you should leave. But they're in effect doing the same thing. So it was a union that shouldn't have happened to begin with, because there was a trade imbalance to begin with. And Europe has three problems. They've got the sovereign debt problem. They've got the problem of insolvent banks because they bought all the sovereign debt, and with
zero risk weights.
Zero risk weights, and they've levered up 30 to 40 times. And then they have the trade imbalances. You can't solve two of the problems, the sovereign debt and the bank problem, without solving the third problem of trade imbalances. All three have to be solved in order for Europe to be made workable.
Recohere, yeah.
And it's the trade imbalances that ultimately will be the problems for the rest of the peripheral states. Either that, or the Germans just have to bite the bullet, and they're not going to do that. Politically, that is not sellable.